Thanks for being here, everybody. Hope you and your family are healthy and safe. I want to take this opportunity to thank all the essential workers who are out there putting themselves at risk for our well-being. I think we all recognize what a tremendous job they're doing, and I thought it would just be good if we could get together. I know the last time that we were together was after signing day in early February, so Asim and Kevin thought that it would be a good time to do it, and I agreed. So I'll try to help with anything that I can, understanding that some of the stuff I'm no different than you. I don't have a real idea. So why don't we just open it up?
Greg, two things, I guess, logistically. One, when do you feel that you would need to know for the start of, normal August practice and fall season, if that's going to happen or not? And I know the university has sent out, said there's no on-campus events through August 14th. The announcement was a little bit vague with preseason practice. Have you been told if the Big Ten gives the green light, would you be able to practice before that August 14th date and have the team back on campus?
All really good questions, James. This is where I am. We're preparing for any number of different situations, but the reality is this: I'm not really qualified, nor is it my place to speculate on what would happen or when it would happen or how it would happen. What I've tried to stay focused on is the health and well-being of our players and where we can help their families, right? But I owe it to these kids' parents and guardians to make sure that they're safe and that they're healthy. So I've spent probably a clear majority of my time on that. But I have been coming up with different contingency plans. But for me to speculate when and how, I don't think it's appropriate, nor do I think I'm qualified.
Yeah, Greg, I was curious, maybe what is your typical day like? Maybe you could take us through that, because these days are so different for everyone. I'm just curious what kind of process you go through every day now.
Well, I try to keep a very similar routine, but it's obviously not, because there's no players or staff. I'm in my home, but I get up, start my day with some time in the Word, and then start working, planning the day out, and then it's a series of different kinds of virtual meetings, and with either my staff or Big Ten or with Pat Hobbs and the administrative staff, just very much like when you're the head coach back on campus, except you're not dealing with the players. We do have meetings with our players. I've left that more to the assistant coaches, as a new staff, to be installing our offense and our defense and our special teams. But I will have staff meetings where we spend a lot of time brainstorming, some time on football scheme. More of that's in the offense and defense and special teams coaches meetings. But we will have staff meetings, and then obviously recruiting. We spend a lot of time on recruiting, as we normally do. That's a year-round endeavor. So the days are equally as demanding. It's just kind of in a different format. I do have to make sure that I get up and go do some things, go get a workout in, or go for a walk. Otherwise, I conceivably could be sitting in my office for 12 to 18 hours on any day. The neat thing, I think there's in any adversity, there's always opportunity. And one of the things that I think has been a really cool thing is I've had more family dinners in the last month than I've probably had in the last 20 years. So that's been really a great benefit of a very tough time.
I was wondering, with the way everything has turned out, has this thrown you way behind in where you want to be, or are you trying to stay as current as possible, or how do you look at it?
Well, like I just said, I think adversity, right, which we're certainly as a nation and the world facing, it all boils down to your world. So in our world, I'm a football coach and I have these young people that I'm responsible for. I just try to prioritize, what's most important. So first and foremost is the health and well-being of our players and their families, and our staff and their families. So I try to make sure that each day that's number one thing that I'm thinking about, that I'm dealing with. But then you have to move on and onto the football and onto the recruiting. So how can we in this time, turn the adversity into an opportunity? And one of the ways I think is that our coaches are doing a great job through remote and web-based meetings. And I just got done. I had a team meeting today, which I don't do very often since we've been separated. I kind of leave that more to the assistant coaches, but I thought it was important that we get together, and I shared with them, what we spend a week installing right now would have been installed in one day had we been practicing. So without the urgency to get out on the field and do it, we're able to spend a much longer period of time on each phase. So hopefully the players are getting a better understanding that way, because what we're giving up obviously is the physical repetitions and being able to see if we can take it from the meeting room to the walkthrough, from the walkthrough to the drills, to the team periods, and see if we can do it. But I do think there's a benefit of slowing things down and really making sure that everybody understands. So I think anytime you're a new staff, you're behind a little bit because you're installing things for the first time, whether it be football or culture or whatever it is. Does this throw us further behind? I don't know, because everybody's kind of dealing with the same circumstance. I think as in anything in life, how creative you can be, how efficient you can be, kind of determines what you make of the time period. So that's kind of been our focus.
Hey, Coach, you kind of touched on it a little bit already, but, like you said, most teams are without spring practice, but how do you think it'll affect your team going forward?
Well, we're not going to have that. So it is what it is. Some teams actually in our league got halfway through spring practice. So, if you were at a little bit of a deficit being a new staff, that even increases some. But again, without knowing when the start date will be, who knows when it'll be, right? So I've tried to just kind of put that out of my mind and out of our staff's mind. And although we have to plan for the contingencies on what might occur, not spend too much time on that. We want to be ready when the opportunity is to get back together. But how can we best utilize this time? And as I said, it starts first with the health and safety of our players and their families and our staff and their families, but then moving through each individual opportunity, whether it be football or culture or opportunities to do some programming, whatever it is. What's the best way to do that? Utilizing all the different technologies we have, utilizing all the people that can influence the players. We really are trying to be as creative as we can.
Coach, congratulations on the recruiting success. We have you as the number 11 ranked team in the nation now in the class of 2021. What do you attribute that success to, especially since you can have actual visits on or off campus?
Well, I think, again, our staff is doing a very good job in developing relationships, have done a very good job in developing relationships. And, one of the things about being able to hire the staff we were able to hire is they're trusted in the state of Rutgers. There's pre-existing relationships with so many people in the area. Then the great job that the guys did early on of not only recruiting the 2020 class, which, we've continued to do, adding several walk-ons as well as a few more scholarship players, but at the same time, which is the hard part, recruiting the class of 21, the class of 22, and the class of 23. And that's always been, our strong point, is that we're aware of all the different grade levels and communicating with them within the rules every way we can, whether they're freshmen, sophomores, juniors, or seniors. And that to me is what pays dividends as you develop those relationships over time. And our guys did a great job of getting the 21 class and the 22 class on campus before everything came about with the virus. So that gave us a little bit of a chance to build those relationships even stronger.
Hey, Coach, with having to do everything virtually and kind of navigate your way through these unprecedented times, how do you keep your players engaged and motivated?
Well, that's a great question, and we spend a lot of time as a staff talking about just that. I think our staff has really done a good job of keeping things fresh, utilizing every bit of technology that we have. I mean, you really can. I'll tell you that one thing that will come from this is I have kept a journal, and I've asked our staff to, when we do return to campus and we do return to more normal way of living, how can we utilize the things that we've learned through this and make what we do then better? And, I know I have a whole list of stuff that we're going to utilize technology in a different way when we get back together. So it's not only serving us well now and the ways that we try to keep it interesting and creative for our players. I think that's going to definitely help us when we get back at it.
I'm curious, feeding off the question that Steve Edelson asked. What is your quarantine logistics? Did you have a chance to move before all this happened? Are you still in temporary housing? Do you have all 4 kids at home? I mean, what's that situation like?
We do. We have all 4 of our children at home, my wife and I, and it's I've kind of tried to do exactly what the experts have told us to do, and as we know, that's changed over time. Which, as we learn more, I don't spend a ton of time, because I spend a ton of time doing what I mentioned earlier, making sure our players and their families are safe, making sure our staff and their families are safe, and making sure my own family's safe. I don't spend a ton of time watching the TV, which is probably a good thing. I think because of all the conference calls and things I'm on with the Big Ten and their expertise and with Pat and our administration here at Rutgers and their expertise, I get all the information I need to effectively try to protect as many of our people as we can, but I don't get caught up in too much of the whatever you want to call it, the constant monitoring of every second. I try to do my job as well as I can. But as I said, it's been neat to have everybody together, and to have family dinners has been really fun. That's been kind of my highlight of my day each day.
And you had mentioned the health and safety of the players. I'm just curious, were there any situations that had you worried? I know you have players from different backgrounds, different parts of the country. Then anything happened that you really had to monitor or look at?
There is. Without getting into names, first off, it's all over not only all over the country, but all over the world. We have some international players on our team. So that's one thing. The second thing is we've had some guys on our team that family members have had the virus. So making sure that, again, from afar, how do you do it? But you just try to educate as much as you can. I've tried to educate our staff from the information that I've received, and then they in turn try to educate each position group. So yeah, we've had, anytime there's a situation that comes to my attention, I immediately get on the phone with our players and, how can we help? How can we, what information can we get to the player to help protect him? But it's hard, I think we've had players that have lost people to the virus, and it's sad, right? And it's things that you don't even think about, like they had to do a virtual family service for their lost loved one. Like those are hard things, right? And the one thing that I have become I use much more is FaceTime and these WebEx, Zooms, all those things. I just think the ability to see someone's face and communicate. And if we do this again, I would recommend, maybe doing it that way as well, so we'd see each other. It's been healthy for me to be able to see people and not just talk on the phone, which is really what I was accustomed to most. But I've become much more comfortable and actually like doing it the other way now more.
So recently, Chris Fowler of ESPN suggested the idea of playing games without fans, and also the idea of possibly playing the games in spring. What are your opinions on those two things?
You know, Richie, I'm not dodging your question, but I just really don't think that it's appropriate, nor am I qualified to be making those statements, because I haven't spent any time gathering information on that stuff. So, and again, I think it's so far above athletics or college football. I mean, these are national and international decisions that have to be made, and then it's going to trickle down through the states and then down through the universities and through the leagues and the NCAA as a whole. That I'm gonna stay clear of speculation, because that truly would be all it is for me. And what we don't need right now is more guys, you know, especially coaches, trying to speculate on what that's going to look like.
Gotcha. So let me ask you this one then real quick. You guys have been adding a ton of preferred walk-ons. I know you can't say names or anything like that, but how important is it to add quality walk-ons to this program or any program?
I think it's critical, you know, and if you remember back to our first go around here, that was always a huge part of our program. We had 11 years, we had 7 captains that were walk-ons. So they ended up earning scholarships and becoming captains. That doesn't happen by accident. You know, if it happens once or twice, that may be by chance. But when it happens 7 of the 11 years, that's because we really value the walk-on program and the walk-ons themselves. And, you know, I think anybody who thinks they have a science on this recruiting, they, you know, and not the recruiting, I shouldn't say that. They have a science on the evaluation of football players, especially guys in their teens, you know, how they're going to develop. You know, I think they're kidding themselves, right? So I think you help your program when you can find like-minded guys that come from a similar belief system that really want to be part of your program at Rutgers. That's when I say we're looking for Rutgers guys, we're looking for guys that want to be part of what we are building, and part of, you know, guys that are willing to work very, very hard, guys that are willing to be unselfish, put the team before themselves. And when you can identify, in addition to your scholarship players, real quality football players that for several different reasons want to come to Rutgers, you know, whether they're local guys that want to stay home and represent their state and their state university, or whether they're guys from out of town that, you know, want an opportunity to get a great education and play big-time Big Ten football. We really work hard at that. And does that take time? Absolutely. But to me, it's time well spent.
Just building on what you talked about recruiting, how much did Steve Pikiell's success early on? You were very visible at the basketball games. So how much of that energy helped you and your staff carry on? And did it remind you of 05, 06 when you saw the passion from the fans?
Well, I'll tell you what, Coach Pikiell, what a tremendous job that he has done, he and his staff and his players. You know, and certainly he was recognized as Coach of the Year, and much deserved. I just think that's been unbelievable for us. You know, I enjoy going to the RAC, and the energy and the games are so exciting, and the way our kids play. You know, Coach Pikiell's built a program that we would love to emulate. I mean, it's a bunch of guys who play really, really hard, and you can see the fans and the passion at the RAC. They feed off that, and I think it's great to see the fans and the players feeding off each other. And Coach Pikes has done an unbelievable job building this program, and certainly we get the benefit of, you know, you can see we've brought recruits there several times, and you know, our student section is unbelievable. Like, to have our recruits be able to look to their left and see an incredible student section just totally behind their classmates out there playing. There's a certain feel about that you know, you can talk about it, but when you're there and you feel it, and it's uniquely a state of Rutgers thing. It's something that I think our recruits really identify with. So yeah, Fooch, without a doubt, what the job that the basketball team and Coach Peichel have done has been huge for our recruiting.
I know you mentioned helping, the current players on the roster. What can you do with, I guess, the 2020 guys who have signed but obviously are still in high school? How can you kind of help them, and maybe they have to graduate first and foremost, and kind of make sure they're okay?
Well, we've done, we're trying to stay in contact. Now, we had a lot of early enrollees. I think we had 13 total, 9 that were high school kids. So a lot of them have been with us, and then we still have a good number that aren't, the signees and then all the walk-ons that were mentioned. The rules are very particular, though, about what you're allowed to do and what you're not allowed to do with those guys, because they're still, high school students. So everything within the rules we do, and, what is that? That's staying in contact. It's certainly, if there's any way that, we can give them information that helps. It's a crazy time, like even the SATs and the ACTs, them being canceled has put some guys in a tough situation that are trying to become eligible with their score or want to improve their score. So we try to educate as much as we can. That's really about the limit we can do besides, our prayers for them and their families. So that's where we are, mainly because of the rules.
Greg, are you done with 2020 now? I know you had a couple of scholarships left. Do you not anticipate that wave of guys into the portal because there are no spring practices for the most part across the country?
Well, I think so. That's a great question, and we're never done. So let me, people always say we're never done. You're always looking. It's always a fluid state when you're building your team and managing your roster. I think to answer your question about the portal, there'll probably be less because there's not a spring football where guys kind of can read the writing on the wall. This may not be the right place for me from a playing time standpoint or for whatever reason. But there's a lot of rules that are being voted on this spring that could change, the availability of transfers and that kind of thing. So it really is a fluid subject that as a head coach you really have to stay on top of because there's opportunity there as long as you're aware of it. And we try to stay as aware of it as we can. That's something that we spend a lot of time on. Okay, guys, thanks. And again, be safe, huh? I appreciate you jumping on.